Hi, everybody, and welcome to Drop Shot, where the love for tennis meets the thrill of competition. My name is Michele Dinella, and I will be your host and fellow tennis enthusiast. Join me on my personal tennis journey from the clay courts of southern Italy to the bustling streets of Washington, D.C. In each episode, my guests and I will share personal experiences, we'll comment on Grand Slams, analyze players and stats, and even offer tips on gear and apparel. Whether you are a seasoned pro or maybe just picking up a racket, sit back and get ready to serve, volley, and ace your way through the fascinating world of tennis. All right, listeners, welcome back for a new episode. We took a long summer break, but we are so back. And today, in particular, I'm so happy to introduce you to a new sponsor for the Drop Shot podcast. It's an app, it's a great app, and it's called Tennis Ball. I wanted to take a moment to introduce you to it because it's an app that has become a game changer for me here in Washington, D.C., and for my tennis community. And whether you are a seasoned player or just starting out, Tennis Pal is the perfect place to help you connect with like minded tennis players and with coaches as well in your area. You just put your radius and your location, and it will connect you right away with people around you. It's the same concept of a dating app, but applied to tennis. And I think it's genius. I think it's one of the very few tennis apps that work here in the United States. So I would 100% recommend it. You can schedule games, you can chat with other players, you can share tips and stories about the sport that we all love and that we are here joined to talk about today. It's available on iPhone and also on Android, and it's your all-in app for everything tennis. I've used it to organize matches. We have a beautiful group down here in Washington, D.C. Actually, if you are around this area, let me know and we can play a game together. We can play singles, doubles, all of this thanks to Tennis Pal, that is the sponsor for this episode. And the host for this episode is someone that you already know and love, and I'm talking about Stefano Tognazzi. Hi, Stefano, and thank you for being here with me today.
Hello, Michele. As always, it's a beautiful pleasure to be back again after a bit of a break. So a lot has happened since our last episode. So I guess we can get the ball rolling and get started to unpack all the events that happened basically since Wimbledon.
Well, we deserved that break, Stefano, because we went to watch the Queen's Club, we went to watch Wimbledon. I went to watch the DC Open, but didn't have a chance to make an episode about it. So I'm gonna throw here and there some hints, some things about what has happened. Of course, we watched the Olympics. Of course, we watched the US Open, the Cincinnati Open. There's all kinds of stuff to talk about, but that will be done organically in this episode. This episode is dedicated to the China Open, actually, that just concluded itself in Beijing, and there is a lot to talk about this tournament because I have seen, Stefano, some beautiful tennis, especially on the men's side. ATP has surprised me for the quality of the games, especially the last few rounds. I was impressed watching all these beautiful games, and I want to start talking about that with you. And where would you like to start from today?
Yes, absolutely. I could not agree more. Let's start from the kind of organization of the tournament. It is peculiar in the sense that it is a joint tournament, so we're also going to talk about the WTA afterwards as well. But for the men, it was a level 500 tournament, while for the women's was a master. So we had this kind of weird schedule that ended with the men's final on the Wednesday, and what a final it was. Um, and Yeah, I'm very impressed by the quality of the players that got into the draw of the tournament, especially on the men's side. Obviously, preparing for the Masters that is currently going on. And yeah, as you said, we had great matches and also very, very interesting kind of Cinderella stories that we all love with Boo making it all the way from the qualifiers to the semi-final.
Majin Buu, we will talk about him. Oh my God, what a player! What a player! So, Stefano, is there someone that has impressed you particularly in this tournament apart from Buu himself? Let's not talk about Sinner and Alcaraz yet, but is there any surprise that you've noticed, or everything was as you expected?
I think surprisingly the tournament went relatively linear, as we had basically the four of the best eight players were all in the quarterfinals, and we're going to talk about Rublev. Because you told me not to pick Sinner, which I would have picked Sinner, but mainly because of all the off the court stuff that has been going on. So it's very hard to perform sometimes with such pressure on your shoulders about things that go on outside of the court. But I would say might be a weird pick, but I was positively impressed by Medvedev, not particularly by his tennis, because we know he is elite when it comes to hard
The
courts.
shape is in.
Yeah, the shape and really what really impressed me was his attitude, which I found weirdly positive in the match against Alcaraz. Uh, he's quite like a classic Russian madman stereotype, and he gets angry often as well. And he lost, but he was in good spirits, and I found it somehow weird. But yeah, that speaks very highly of the quality that Alcaraz of tennis that Alcaraz played, and I don't think he was sarcastic smiling. He legitimately looked in good spirits, so I think he might have found or he's trying to a more different psychological approach to the game. I don't know if you had the same feeling, but yeah, I found it very peculiar.
But I think he got a bit angry in the second set. I saw some hints of him getting frustrated, but less than usual for sure. I think that the reason why is that he accepted basically that Alcaraz is physically on a different level. I don't know if you noticed how much Alcaraz ran, but also made Medvedev run. So there were so many lobs in this game from Alcaraz to Medvedev, and he was just enjoying the quality of that tennis. I think he saw how intense the game was, and he recognized that, and it's impossible not to recognize actually. So probably he was having fun. That's my take on this, but I don't want to uh, give too many spoilers because we have to go a little bit back and talk about the earlier stages as we usually do. And we can actually start from Medvedev if you like. I was impressed by how easily he destroyed Manarino. I think it was a 7-6, 6-2. There were many like ties in this tournament. Pretty much all the games ended up 2-0, at least on the ATP side, which is an interesting statistic. I don't know if you've noticed that. And then I think one of the most entertaining games that I've seen is the one against Cobolli, and not because they were even. I think Medvedev beat Cobolli on every single level, but I'm falling in love with Cobolli, with Flavio Cobolli, so much lately with his style. I think he is so iconic, and he is exactly one of those players that have fun actually playing tennis, and it makes me want to play the game. It makes me want to go out there and and play with my friends. That's the kind of vibe that Koboli gives me. He plays such, I don't want to say carefree because I still believe he cares, but uh, he's not that com- he doesn't get that frustrated, if it makes sense. I don't know if you've noticed, and that's something pretty rare in professionals in the tennis world. So that's something uh, to be kept from spoiling, because it's pretty unique.
Yeah, we were speaking earlier about the good vibes from Medvedev. He always kind of, not always, but yeah, more than others, looks always kind of in a good mood type of thing. And let's not. It's great that you brought up Koboli and the fact that plenty of matches finished true to love, because his first round was one of the most interesting matches against Public, which is always entertaining. And that match went the full distance, and Koboli made it through at the third set tiebreak. And I think he is having a great year. He's currently ranked 30, I believe, or around there. And he put himself on the map, which is very important because he did had some deeper runs. Although the match against Medvedev, he really didn't have too many chances to win
No.
it. But if you recall earlier in the year, he had an absolute classic epic match against Holger Rune in the
Hmm.
second round of Roland Garros,
Hmm.
and being participating in those type of matches that people remember will definitely help you put you on the map and throughout your career.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. And he's such like an iconic player. Also, the kit that he had in this tournament is so like flashy and colorful, and it makes me want to buy that. It's like that meme from Futurama, take my money and shut up. And really, also his rackets, everything about him is so iconic, and the way that he annihilated, I think he was the round of 16 against Kotov. Um, Beautiful game and beautiful tennis. He was generally having fun, and I would like to see more of that in these tournaments, because yes, it's true, it's your career, you're a professional, but also uh, what is tennis without actually having fun? So I don't want to see only angry people uh, or just competition. I also want to see that kind of stuff, and I think Koboli brings that to the table very very often. So we need more of that. I don't know if you agree.
Yes, absolutely. And talking about iconic and first round matches, I really truly enjoyed, since we're talking about the love for tennis and enjoying the tennis and being happy about watching tennis or playing tennis. Um, One of the early round matches of this tournament that is going on. So Kei Nishihori coming back. So this is during the Shanghai tournament. But yeah, I love to see when players that I used to love growing up, like him or Wawrinka, for instance, took part in Beijing that we're talking about, and he got eliminated in the first round, or Monfils as well, giving it all against Medvedev in the first round, and obviously still losing.
I know there's also another one among your favorites, if I remember correctly. That is another iconic, stylish player, and I'm talking about Kachanov. And I think he played a great tournament this time, and he hadn't been around for um, pretty long. I would say he had been off the radar for a few tournaments in a row. So I was so happy to see him come back in such good shape. I believe that he is one of those players that take a long time to get back into the mechanism of winning and of being in shape and in training, just because he's like a massive guy. But when he's there physically, he has some killer shots, and I believe that we saw that against Cerundolo. It was a pretty close game. I want to say they went to tiebreak in both sets, but Kachanov was in such a good shape that he was able to win both the tie breaks. And we also saw glimpses of that in the quarterfinals against Alcaraz. Of course, this version of Alcaraz is just unplayable. It's basically a death sentence if you find him in the draws. I don't know what can possibly counter him right now. But I still think that Kashanov played a beautiful game, even against Alcaraz, especially the first set. He was throwing everything at him, and just because he was Alcaraz, he was able to retrieve some of those shots, some of those forehands. But I was really impressed by his shape.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you are partially correct. I do like Chakhanov, although he's kind of how can we describe him? It's a bit like well, spring water. It's like something essential, but nothing special. And he's a proper good all arounder. I don't think you can associate Chakhanov with being the best server on tour, or the best returner on tour, or the best forehand on tour, or the best drop shot on tour. But he is good enough in all those skills. And when he's in good shape, yeah, he can play big matches and beat big names. Obviously, he managed to get the most out of this tournament. I don't think realistically he thought he could go beyond the Alcaraz obstacle. So that's good for him. And Cerundolo also not easy to play. I think he got a bit lucky in the sense that, well, it's not luck, it's just how the game goes. Because Cerundolo played Mensik in the first round, and Mensik is indeed a name on the rise. And it's somebody that I really don't want to meet as a qualifier in the first round at the moment. But he will be a household name on tour sooner rather than later, and you don't want to be the guy that loses against a 19-year-old to give him the points and make himself known. So good job also for Cerundolo, not the greatest year, so got the job done in the first round, and then, as you said, there wasn't much he could have done in the second match against Chakhanov. It was a tight match. It comes down to all those few points that make a big difference in the game of tennis.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But talking about my upsets for this tournament, I believe that the biggest one was Rublev himself. I was expecting, honestly, more. And yes, he annihilated Fokina in the round of 16. Um, but at the same time, when it came to um, pushing himself against someone like Boo, um, I believe that Rublev got so impatient, and wanted to play. I really believe that he wants to play tennis in his own way, but sometimes he doesn't have the mental flexibility to change his strategies during the game itself. And that condemns him to being one of those um, that don't make it consistently to the finals and to the semifinals. So that's the gap that separates him from the bigger names right now. He did play good tennis. Don't get me wrong, but if you look for power and depth against someone like Boo, he's basically walling you at all times and waiting for you to make a mistake. That's not going to be very effective, and you have to be smart enough to understand it early in the game and to change it up if you want to get there. Uh, so this is, I want to say, this is my biggest upset for this tournament.
Well, Michele, is it time to go a bit behind the scenes of the podcast because of the quarterfinals day? Well, to be fair, I think that Boo really played the couple of weeks, 10 days of the tennis of his life. I watched basically almost all of his matches, and disappointed that by Musetti, but like this guy was just literally throwing everything, like the sink, the
He was
kitchen,
in
the
God mode
bathtub, everything. Yeah, yeah. And I mean that's the approach you must have as like a wildcard slash qualifier sometimes, you
in
know.
your hometown.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Yeah, he actually got a wild card. It was not through the qualifier. Wouldn't have qualified. And the funny thing, if we raise the curtain a bit, it was the last of the four matches of the quarterfinals, and we were chatting about, the best four players making it to the semifinal after the Sinner match before Rublev took the court. And I was joking about it, like winking, like, Rublev is going to make it easy unless he has one of his classic meltdowns. And that's actually not, it didn't went like a full Rublev meltdown. My kind of take on that, and Rublev in general, I think we touched upon this in the past, is that he has I see it also maybe from Sabalenka sometimes. They want to be, or they must feel that they're in a dangerous situation or in a bad situation to actually extract the
In order
best
to make
tennis.
that
And
switch, but sometimes they
yeah,
don't make it.
but this time, particular time, at some point, the hole that you kind of dig yourself was sometimes it's too deep to get out of, even with your best tennis, because you're suddenly down a set and a break, and that's a big hole. Even if your name is in the top five in the world, even if your name is Djokovic, it's not easy. It's not easy.
I
And,
don't
and
think it's just that. I don't think it's just that. Sorry to interrupt you, Stefano. I want to give credit to Boo because I don't think that Musetti played a bad match. I think that Musetti played at the best of his capabilities. He wasn't lucky for sure, but also the problem that we're not seeing here is that you can't, there's one player that you're never gonna beat, and that's the wall. That's what they say in tennis. The wall always wins, and if you become the wall, which is the case for Boo, uh, you're just gonna be unbreakable. And unless you find the ways to make him come out of his fort, and you make him come to the net a little bit. You have some drop shots here and there, or you have to be flawless, just like Sinner was in the semifinal. These are the two alternatives that you have. You can hit as hard as you want. It's not gonna make a difference, and that's what Rublev didn't get in time for to change his game. But also Musetti, he I saw Musetti pretty desperate because he didn't know how to approach the second set. He was able to do a little bit better, but still, everything that he threw was getting returned back to the sender, and I understand that can be very very frustrating. Um, and and then you start making mistakes, and then you get in a bad spiral. So kudos to that. Kudos to Boo for achieving that. Um, but also, I would expect more from such experienced players, if I can say that.
Yeah, absolutely agree. No, no, I'm not taking anything away from Boo. Actually, I was extremely impressed of the approach he had the whole week. But I do have to politely disagree on the performance of Musetti, which is it is just one day and one match. We also need to remind ourselves that everybody can have a bad day. But if we bring out my beloved statistics, here we have a match in which there's a difference of 50 places in the rank in favor of Musetti. He considered 5 breaks, and Boo had 18 winners, so he was not just defending, right? He was also kind of on the front foot as well.
Yeah.
Musetti had an appalling 46% of service points won. It's less than 50%. You can't win game. The number of total points won was 66 to 45. It's 20-point difference. You will not win on a day when you play like that, and some of that it will always be in your under your control. Uh, some of it will not, and you can also be unlucky. But yeah, nah. Uh,
How do you think
big credits to Boo, but like yeah,
how do you
it is
think
okay.
that Sinner worked around it and beat Boo?
To to be fair, and again to give credit to Boo appearance in this tournament, there were a couple of moments in the Sinners match where it look it could be reopened and go to a third set. Eh?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean it was tight. It was tight at some moment, and I mean it's not enough to have just the number one written next to your name to play like the number one player in the
Oh, it's
world
a
every day. You
target.
know?
Most times it's
Yeah,
a target.
exactly, exactly. So yeah, impressive. I think there are two things. First of all, doesn't matter how much you're used to it. Um, just the power and the space of yes, Yannick's ground strokes is just that oomph a bit more compared to anybody else, and even at that level, um, they're not used to it and they have to adapt. And second, kind of, I would say, as usual, um, a lot goes in between the left ear and the right ear of Yannick to keep cool
Yeah,
whenever some
yeah.
of the situations arise during a match. We saw it as well, and now we're going to talk about the final. We saw it as well early in the final, in the second game of serve. I believe it was when they had like 3 break points, and he managed to save all three against Alcaraz. And that happened at different time points during the game or during the overall match as well. And there were stints in the game against Boo when this was the case as well. So yeah, and again, and in order to have that number one next to your name, it's not just about the ground strokes. It's also a lot about what's going on into your head and how you deal with such moments.
Yep, can't agree more on that. I believe that if there was someone that could counter Boo's strategy, was exactly Sinner, because he's in such a good headspace right now after winning the U.S. Open. He needed a victory in a major tournament. Um, to confirm himself. You know, he's after all that happened with the doping drama and everything. He really, really needed that, and I think he brought that same mentality over to Beijing, um, and he was able to keep his cool. Not that I had any doubts about it, but that was really the game changer. Together with the geometry of Sinner's game, Sinner's style, you cannot beat him on that. He is spotless. He very, very seldom makes mistakes. I've seen, for example, Musetti, if you want to talk about that. I've seen many balls from Zetti on the net, and that is something, as you said, that I do not expect from a professional. Um, in the semifinal, that didn't happen, and that's what made the difference. Of course, at these levels, you have to be really really perfect, especially when you're dealing with champions like Sinner and Alcaraz, and we are now approaching the final. So let's talk about the elephant in the room, Carlos Alcaraz. Um, he won against Greek Sport in the round of 16. Easy job. And then remarkable, the semifinal is against Medvedev. um, I was really, really impressed. I believe that it was the best game of the tournament, maybe together with the final. But I might be a little biased because Sinner was in the final. But really, there was some beautiful, beautiful tennis what we saw between Alcaraz and Medvedev, and the athletic condition that Carlos has right now is just impressive to me. It's like superhuman, and I really believe that Medvedev acknowledged that at some point, and he said, "Okay, but I'm human, and he's something else, and I just play my best tennis and see what happens." And that's exactly what went on there. And the, I don't know if you're ready to talk about the final, or if you want to add something on top of that, Stefano. But I just want to say that it was a level of tennis that I haven't seen in probably many, many years.
Absolutely, absolutely. The only thing I would disagree with is that obviously the final was one of the best matches of the year, actually. So that would be my pick for match of the tournament. Uh, Again, the semifinal with Medvedev was extremely high quality, which is what you want to watch. And I think he got a bit hampered in the second set once Medvedev had a bit of a physio problem. And I think was that the moment when he realized that he cannot keep up with what was going on the other side of the net, and kind of I don't want to say give up, but because they don't as professional tennis players. But I would say that yeah, that kind of like maybe got him the realization of what you mentioned as well. And but boy, oh boy, did that gave us a gift for one of the best matches of the year. That's like, wow, every time they meet, it's always incredible matches and incredible tennis. And I would say this is not the rivalry that we needed, but this is the one that we deserved to try to rephrase some quotes. But um, it's incredible also the relationship they have among each other, and how Sinner was actually leading in the heads-to-heads 4-3, I believe, before Indian Wells, and now he lost three in a row. But it was his chance to go back even at 5-5, and for a minute there, it looked like it would be the case. Surface, Jannik Surface. The last time they met was that epic match in the semifinal of the Roland Garros. So expectations were high, and I don't know about you, this match did not disappoint, Michele.
No, absolutely not. How could it disappoint with what we have seen? I don't know where to start from. I I'm always more convinced that Alcaraz is Jannik Sinner's kryptonite right now, or he has been for the last year for sure. Uh, it seems like it's getting closer for sure, because Sinner is also in a very good condition, as we just said. But Alcaraz has just something more to him, that makes him make that go that extra mile, and I believe that Sinner has to soon win a game against Alcaraz because he's been losing too much, and I I really wish that he doesn't get into a spiral where he loses his self confidence against Alcaraz, and it becomes a pattern. I don't think that's the case right now because, as you said, Stefano, they're playing some beautiful tennis and they're also having fun. Um, but you have the pressure of being number one, but there's also this guy that you haven't beaten in a long time. So, what does that mean? Um, I'm sure that it makes you question if you actually are the number one in the world, or if it's just like uh, points that you score through the tournaments. Um, I believe that the second option is the most true. And I also believe that there's moments in tennis, and those moments can vary even from one month to the other, from one tournament to the other. But right now, I think that Alcaraz is still somehow superior, slightly superior. It's like in Dragon Ball Z, Goku is always a little bit stronger than Vegeta. And that's how I see it right now. I don't know if you agree with this parallel.
Nah, I guess this is the episode where we were most in disagreement for the some of the parts, but I would say that we have an epic, epic rivalry in our hands for the future, and
I
this
hope
is
so.
only good for the ATP. And yeah, maybe there are some times where Alcaraz will be better. Maybe there are some spells where Sinner will be better. All I can say is that one day we will have a Grand Slam final between the two of them, and that might be one of the games of the decade. So it will happen at some point, of course, because they're definitely destined to be number one and number two for quite some time. Obviously, pending any outcome of investigations on Sinner, of course, that we didn't touch too much upon during the episode, but yeah, that can still happen. But just to give you a perspective on the match and like what's the difference is even if you're better, when it comes down to the first set and you go and serve for the set, and then that's the game when you get broken, which is what happened to Alcaraz in the first set. It really speaks volume of the mental toughness that your opponent, in this case Sinner, has, and how they dealt with these super high pressure moments was extremely fascinating in this match because they were both kind of one break down, then one break up, and then yeah, Sinner came back in the first set at the very last chance, won the tiebreak, and then he went back and forth the whole game. But if you look purely at the stats, Alcaraz deserved to win that match. He had more breakpoint opportunities, 15 against 6. He converted only 3 of those 15, while Jannik was basically converted 2 in very important moments. And again, if you look at service point 1, Alcaraz was 6% better than Jannik was. And also the total point ones was 120 for Yannick to 132 for Alcaraz. And we know we had this discussion in the past that sometimes matches come down with like 4 or 5 point difference, even in 5 setters. And in this case, although it went the full distance, this 12 points difference is quite big. And not to belittle Carlos' approach, we had this moment in the tiebreak when he was down 3-0. He was down 3-love in the tiebreak and won 7 points in a row. So mental toughness goes for both, and that's why they're 1 and 2. And oh yeah, Alcaraz is a bit more fickle under that from that point of view, I think. But the quality is there, so it's like please give us more of these matches.
As I said, I really hope that it turns into that legendary rivalry that we were able to witness with Federer and Nadal. Um, but that's like saying Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. It's not easy to achieve that, and these two guys are very young, and despite they've already done so much, they still have a long way to come. And I hope, as I said, that they find also that kind of alternation. Right now, Alcaraz is winning more than Sinner, but I'm sure that it's going to change in the future. But for it to happen, I believe that Sinner is missing just one small step um, that he's going to make. I'm confident that he's going to make. The devil is in the details, as they say. But so far, they've given us some beautiful, beautiful tennis. We've talked about it. For example, I think it was the quarterfinals of the Roland Garros, and then now. Um, I think we have a bright future for ATP coming up, and I couldn't be more happy that for that. On the other side, when it comes to WTA, things look a bit dull to me. I have had some upsets in this tournament, but I want to give a positive spin to the second half of this podcast, and I want to say that I fell in love with a new player that I didn't know, and I still don't know how to pronounce her name the right way, so forgive me. But I was impressed by the Ukrainian girl Starodubtseva. Oh my god, she played beautiful, beautiful tennis unexpectedly. And I saw the game with against Kalinskaya because, of course, I'm interested in Kalinskaya because of Yannick. We all know the romance between them, and I'm curious because it seems like Sinner is thriving from this relationship. I don't know if we can say the same about Kalinskaya, but what I saw in that game is that Starodubtseva completely annihilated her, especially in the second set. She gave her a bagel. But even more so, I was impressed by her performance against Coco Gauff, which, spoiler, is the one who won the tournament on the WTA side. But the first set, Stefano, I don't know if you watched it, but it was impressive. It was a 6-2 from Starodubtseva against Goff. And we know Coco has been like that. She kind of needs that challenge, as you said, for Rublev. Some players are like that. They need to be in dangerous situations in order to make that switch. But I think that we were close to seeing basically Starodubtseva in the semifinal, and possibly also in the final, if that switch hadn't happened for Coco Gauff. Um, did you get to see some glimpses of it?
Yeah, I actually didn't manage to catch the match against Coco Gauff, but I saw the match 2 rounds prior from her. The one against the Armenian player, which definitely also gonna botch the pronunciation, Avan Avanensayan. And I was really impressed. It was supposed to be like a 50-50 type of match. And yeah, she came out like 6-3, 6-1. Easy job. On to the next round. Yeah, why not? She's currently on the brink of a top 100 player in the world. So yeah, sounds
Where
like you
does she
got an
come
improved.
from?
Oh, yeah. You know, on the women's side, things are even more um, volatile in that sense. Like if you look at Paulini, it wasn't a great tournament for her, but like, well, she did enough already this year, so like you definitely forgive it there. But like to go out, basically, I wouldn't say crushed, but well, losing 6-4, 6-0 against Magdalinette, who is not particularly uh, top talent in the WTA. Um, it's not it's not something that you see every day on the women's side. So sorry, on the men's side. So you get more of these type of swings on the WTA, which is also what makes it fun, to be honest. I'll give you one other disappointment from me in the tournament. because when she did beat Lynette in the following round, and when Sabalenka lost, spoilers, um, I thought that was a great opportunity for
Mira,
Mirra to win it
yes.
all. Yeah, I thought she had a golden chance. I thought she had a golden chance to win it all. And well, I mean, you got Zhang played also a very very good tournament, and playing on home soil as well. We all know it does give you that extra 5%. Let's say that we all know it's big, and yeah, tough loss in that match,
She's
but.
my favorite. Right now, she's my favorite. I love her tennis. 17 years old, man. Like, can you believe that? I and you can tell, that's the thing, you can tell from her face that she's so young, but she plays with such confidence and with such a unique style. I want to say also, that it's just an iconic player. It's gonna, I hope it's gonna become an iconic player in the future, that she's gonna stay in that zone and she's gonna actually get better because she has the margins for it. um, yeah, I was rooting for her against Zhang Qiwen. I'm butchering her name. I'm sorry, but I think she won the first set, um, and then it's the support from the fans being in China. Zhang was kind of the star of the show, just like Boo. They were the big villains to beat, and I understand that. Zhang also plays a very uh, geometrically pleasing tennis. She has some solid strokes. Uh, it's not the first time that we noticed that. She has been there now for many months, and her tennis is improving actually. So Andreeva is very young. She has a lot of space, for a lot of room for improvement, and it's okay that Zhang advanced to the semifinal. But I was actually impressed that she lost in the semifinal, and she lost to someone like Mukova. Um, that yes, Mukova won in the quarterfinals against Arina Sabalenka, which had a Sabalenka bad day, basically. I thought that's what happens. Sabalenka has a bad day, she loses, but I wasn't expecting that Zhang would lose to Mukova in the semifinal, because it was her moment, it was her time and place to go at least to the final, and somehow she didn't make it. And really, I I don't know how Bukova got to the final this year. I don't want to take anything away from her, but I just didn't see anything special, outstanding from her tennis. I'm being mean, and I know that, but she just didn't impress me in any way. Against Sabalenka, she was just there, and she was consistent enough to not make mistakes, and Sabalenka did a lot of mistakes. And same against Zhang. I really don't find an explanation to that.
Wait a second, Michele. Are you telling me that Sabalenka is not your favorite player on the WTA anymore?
No, after what I saw
Ah,
in DC, she's not my favorite player, because I saw her live against Butskova in the semifinal of the DC Open, and it was a shit show. Pardon my French. Um, she was really in a bad day. She was really in a bad mood, um, and she dug her grave with her own hands. And then she lost the first set. She won the second one, but then at the start of the third one, we got rained out. And when they came back and resumed playing, she wasn't again in that zone, and that's why she lost. And I feel like that's the same that happened this time against Mukova. And I'm impressed, because it seemed like from Cincinnati and from the US Open, it seemed like she had gotten back into that headspace. And she did make some improvements. She's been using drop shots more often, and she's not all about just like smashing things. But that wasn't enough.
Yeah, it was not. I'll take the anecdotal route for the WTA side, and I'd like to admit that I was pretty bad at forecasting this tournament because, as I mentioned earlier, when it came to after Sabalenka's lost, I thought it was a golden opportunity for Andreeva to show the world, you can beat the home player. And again, big credit to Zheng. She's been playing pretty good tennis. I mean, she was number 5 getting into the tournament, so obviously high quality player. And then when she won against Andreeva, I was like, well, okay, now we got the home player on a good run, beating the Wonder Kid. She's gonna go all the way and win it. And then she lost against Mukova, and I was like, oh, no, 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 she's got a good streak going. Let's keep the ball rolling. She beat the number 1 seed. She beat the home favorite. Now she's in the final. She's just gonna finish the job. And I missed that as well because on the other side, we got a Coco Gauff that came in pretty well in the final. Um, Tough, not the easiest of early rounds against Katie Boulder. So really a seeded match already at that point. Then yeah, a bit of disappointment by Osaka that she had to retire, so she saved some energies, but she had to spend a lot against Starodubtseva. And yeah, I didn't count this Badosa as a particular threat, but that match also went the distance. And so like he's not entirely sure how in which shape she's gonna make it to the final. Definitely the psychological advantage was on Mukova's side, I thought, because like simply beating these type of players. And actually, Mukova was the favorite to win the match. I would say around 60, 65%, something around those lines. And she got just wiped away by Coco. So congratulations to
I
her for winning
I
the
watched the final, and
Masters.
I regret it. It was ugly. It was a very ugly game. Um, they were. I feel like they were throwing rocks at each other. If you know what I mean, they were trying to close the points as early as possible, and they were just like forehand slapping like crazy. And just like you can't do it against Coco Golf because like she's gonna slap you harder, and that's exactly what happened. That's what you don't want to do against her. And like he was surprised because Mukova had been so patient against Sabalenka and against Zhang in the previous games. So I really don't know what happened today. Um, that's a mystery to me, honestly. As much as a mystery that Mukova made it to the final. I guess it's just a great moment to be Zach, tennis player in WTA. It seems like they have something in the water. But I was rooting for Badosa, honestly, because I saw her live in DC and I saw her win. And she seems like after a long time, finally, she's back where she belongs. She's making it more consistently to the final rounds. She beat, I think it was the other Zhang from China. And again, when you have the audience cheering against you, it's never as easy, in my opinion. But I really believe that Badosa was in a good place and she could have made it. But somehow Goff managed to gather herself in this throughout this tournament, and she progressed up until to this final, which she completely annihilated, winning. I think it was 6-1, 6-3. So it was pretty easy job for her. And maybe Goff, if there's someone who needed to win a tournament, that was Coco Golf because she had been consistently getting to the semifinals or to the finals sometimes, but it's always like blocked off by other players like Sviontek or Sabalenka herself. So finally she got some better luck probably with the draws, and she was able to make it through to the end. But from me, that's all I have to report. That's all that stood out to me. I don't know if you have anything to add on top of that, Stefan.
Yeah, I would only add on top of that that we had never underestimate the pressure that goes on into the finals. We saw, for instance, Paulini against what is it, Iga, Roland Garros, and yeah, Coco should be more used to Mukova to these type of moments, and that really helps a lot when they actually arise. And it's just a matter of experience, really. The more often you get there, the more used to get to that type of pressure, which you really can't properly shrug it off uh, because it's a final. But yeah, it's just how you deal with it that makes the difference between the good players and the great players.
Yeah, so that's it from this Beijing Open. It was a fun tournament, I have to say, especially on the ATP side. We saw some great things. It looks very promising for the rest of the season. So I'm excited for what's coming up. The Australian Open is around the corner. It's going to come sooner than we think. And so we will cover that as well here at Dropshot. But before we go, let me remind you that there's a referral link in the description of the episode, and that link brings you to a beautiful app that is called Tennis Pal that helps you find people and tennis player most specifically in your area, and coaches and people that are just as passionate as you about this beautiful sport. I've used it many times. I had a great experience compared to all the other tennis apps that are around there on the App Store, on Apple and on Android. This is, in my humble opinion, the only one that works and does its job well. So, kudos to Tennis Pal for sponsoring us, and we will see you in the next video. But before we go, let me thank my co host, Stefano Tognazzi, for being with me once more.
Thank you, Michela. Once again, it is always a pleasure and looking forward for the next one.
In the meantime, go out and play some beautiful tennis. Bye.